My name is Deb Wescott, and I would like to welcome you to the IOC session on emotional intelligence. I would also like to thank Jerry Wagner for bringing me here, acknowledging that this topic is important and giving me the opportunity to share with you some of the excitement I have about this topic and how it's impacting not only us, but the world around us. So today we're going to have 4 sections that we're going to talk about. The first session is actually what is emotional intelligence. The second is, so what's the big deal? Why does it matter? Who cares? And the third is, what's the business case for emotional intelligence? And then the fourth is going to be some skill building. So the fourth is, what I'm going to do is help you leave here with some increased emotional intelligence skills. So you're going to practice them and you're going to share them with each other. And you'll leave here with a whole different set of looking at what it means to be emotionally intelligent. So let's start with section 1. Section 1 is, what is emotional intelligence? So emotional intelligence is my ability to be aware of my own feelings, the emotions and the feelings of others in the moment, and to use that information to manage my own feelings and to manage my relationships. Now, that's a 4-part process that's really important, starting with being aware of my own feelings. So most of us don't live in a way where we are aware of our own feelings. We do a lot of what I call autopilot. So we get up and we work and we take care of our families and we exercise and we do the things in the world that we want to do, but we don't often check in to see what we are feeling. We check in a lot to see what we're thinking, but we don't check in to see what we're feeling. So that's number 1. Do I know what I feel in the moment at any given time? Number 2. Do I have any awareness of the other people in my life? So do I know what they're feeling? Can I look at them, look at their bodies, look at their faces, and listen to their words and have a sense of what they're feeling? So my feeling, aware of the other, and then how do I manage those? So how do I manage my feelings, which is a big one, because first I have to know them, and then I want to be able to be present with those feelings and use those feelings in a positive, flexible way. And then I want to have the feelings, mine and of the other, and I want to manage my relationships in the best way I know how. Because relationships matter. Whether you're at work or whether you're at home, whether you're with friends, whether you're out having a beer, relationships are the base of our social system. And I'm sort of a relationship junkie, so you're going to hear me talk a lot about the importance of relationships. The other thing about emotional intelligence is that it's behavior-based. And as a rule, if it's behavior-based, it means that you can change your behaviors. So you're not stuck. So if I gave you assessment right now and you were fairly low in certain emotional intelligence characteristics, don't worry about that, because you can learn to increase your emotional intelligence because it's about behaviors. So it's not about genetics. You don't come in emotionally intelligent or not. It's not about your personality either, which psychologists tend to believe that your personality is pretty set by the time you're 5 to 7 years old. It's not about those things. It is about a set of skills that you can learn to develop and learn to increase. So behaviors, not what is, it's what can be and what could be. All right, on your tables, hopefully you have a stack of sticky notes. What I want you to do is take 5 sticky notes apiece, 3 to 5 sticky notes apiece, and I want you to listen for a sec. What I want you to do is close your eyes for a minute and just think of a person in your life who was phenomenally important to you in a positive way. So this is a person who impacted you, who influenced you, who you felt good with when you were with that person. So think of that person, family, from school, friends, people around you, it doesn't matter. One person who impacted you in a very, very positive way. When you have that person, when you know who that person is, what I want you to do is take your sticky notes and I want you to write down one characteristic or one attribute of that person that makes you value and enjoy that person, that makes you value that human being in your life. So one attribute or one characteristic of that person that makes you feel connected to them, that makes you want to be with them. Okay, write those down. I'm going to go away. Your facilitator in the room is going to finish this exercise, and I'll be back. Have fun. So section 2 is, so what's the big deal? So I'm telling you that emotional intelligence is important, but why? Why does emotional intelligence matter? What you know is that you have been in school for a very long time studying what you learn. So learning cognitive-based skills. And now I'm saying to you, you know what? Those matter. But so does the emotional skills that you have. So let's take a look at what that means. What that means is the research that is now out is that emotional intelligence is the marker for good leadership in organizations. Yes, you have to be smart. There's no question about that. But what will make you a cut above in an organization, in any organization, is your emotional intelligence skills. So what are we back to? We're back to awareness of my own feelings and that of others, managing those feelings and managing my relationships. So we are back to being aware and developing good relationships. So leadership is about relationships. It just is. Leadership is developed in relationships, one relationship at a time. So when we look at leadership, position power versus leadership power, one of the things I want you to look at is, yes, as you go up in an organization, you have more and more position power. But that position power doesn't mean anything unless you also have the ability to do relationships, which is emotional intelligence skills. So we start at the bottom of an organization, and you're using maybe 90% of your technical skills and 10% of your people skills. People skills, which is just another wonderful way of talking about emotional intelligence. Now walk up that organization, and the higher in that organization, the less technical skills that you need and the more people skills you need. So it switches. So now you need 10% of your technical skills and you need 90% of your people skills. Again, 90% of your job is about emotional intelligence. It is about building healthy relationships and working in relationships in that organization. All right, great survey of American workers, 2,000 American workers. And I'm just going to give you some really quick statistics because the more we do research on emotional intelligence, the more valid it becomes. And we need it to be valid because it's an important skill set that we all need to be successful in the world. It actually is one of the primary pieces of our own sense of well-being and our own happiness because it's about knowing who we are and being in healthy relationships. And it doesn't get any better than that if you think about that really simply. So here's a survey of American workers. 65% of 2,000 workers surveyed said that they would rather have a better boss, a new boss, than a pay raise. Now, think about that for a minute. I didn't believe that because I figured what most people wanted was more and more money. Well, what they're saying is, oh yeah, more money is fine, but I want a boss that I can work with. I want a boss that I can have a relationship with. So that's 64%. 60% said they would work harder, that they would be more motivated if they had a boss that supported that they were in a relationship with that was a good relationship. And then finally, almost half of the bosses surveyed, almost half of the people surveyed said that their bosses were emotionally out of control and angry the majority of the time. So what they had is bosses who were not in control of their own feelings and who were acting out outside of their ability to handle their own emotions. Now, if you boil all those down, what do you have? What you have is that people don't leave organizations. They don't. People leave people. So 80% of people leave organizations, not because they didn't get enough money, not because their boss wasn't smart enough, not because there wasn't enough information to be learned. 80% of people leave organizations. They leave organizations because they have trouble with their manager or their boss. So the relationship doesn't work. Now, if you've heard me say this enough, keep watching the dominoes fall, right? Relationships matter. Relationships are based in emotional intelligence. So again, why we do this? We do this so that we can be successful, again, at work, in home, in our relationships. And those are emotional intelligence skills. All right, what I'd like you to do is think a minute. Think a minute about the bosses that you've had. Good bosses, bad bosses don't matter. But think about those bosses in terms of their emotional intelligence skills. Did they have good skills? Did they not have good skills? If you left a supervisor or left a boss, why was it? So I want you to think about those, and then the facilitator is going to help you have a pretty open discussion about, okay, so what really is the connection between me liking a boss, me staying in an organization, and emotional intelligence? I'll be right back. Section 3. What we're going to look at now is what I call the business case. The business case is, let's get some really concrete information about how learning and developing emotional intelligence skills actually supports your life and supports your career. So the first one that's really fun is Ivy League schools put out this huge Harvard Business Review article that forever and ever they admitted people into their business programs based on IQ and based on assessments, on testing. That's what they used across the board, because out of the 2,000 people, they could only take like 180 people into their program. Lo and behold, emotional intelligence comes into play, and they start looking at, all right, so these people that we're bringing into this program, they're intelligent, they're bright, but can they relate to people? So all of a sudden, in our Ivy League business schools, they are now assessing people as they come in on their emotional intelligence skills. Yes, don't get me wrong, you've got to be bright. There is no question. But they're also looking at skills like empathy, resilience, motivation, self-awareness, and interpersonal skills. That entire list is emotional intelligence skills. And here's just a caveat. I keep saying that those are the skills that matter, but I want to go back for a second because we don't learn those skills. We have those skills when we're little. We truly have those skills when we're little. And then the point of our education becomes our cognitive learning. And we lose those skills in many, many ways. So it's not that we don't have them. It's that nobody has paid attention enough to them to make them important. Well, guess what? Now in the world, in our organizations, those skills matter, and they matter big. A company, Sheraton, let's look at Sheraton Hotels. Sheraton Hotels brought in both emotional intelligence training and coaching to their frontline staff. Now, if you think about this, when you walk into a hotel, what you want more than anything else is that person at the desk to make eye contact with you, to pay attention to you, to have some sense of empathy about what you're going through. If you've lost your luggage, if you don't have a reservation, those are the people they trained in emotional intelligence skills. Sheraton Hotel System across the world, international, increased their market share by 24%. Now, if any of you are sitting out there and you're in business, that is huge. By teaching people skills, emotionally intelligent skills to the people at their front desks, they increased the people who came and who stayed and who came back to their hotels. That's exact science, guys. That's a way of saying, okay, this matters. It really does matter. And you know it matters when you have gone to a hotel and the people have been grumpy and they have been unavailable and they have not been helpful. The odds of you going back to that hotel are not high. So that's an example. Last example I have, because it's a professional example. My brother-in-law is a dentist, and he got all excited about emotional intelligence and how I was teaching it and training with it, and he found an article. A really simple article where they did research on our dentists who are very, very successful in the classroom. So get good grades, do really good technical skills in the classroom and training. Do those dentists automatically have successful practices out in the real world? And lo and behold, they do not. Because if they haven't transferred a set of emotional intelligence skills, it isn't going to matter how good they are. It isn't going to matter what kind of grades they got or how clinically sound they are. Think about a dentist. First off, think about how afraid we are of dentists. If those dentists cannot smile, be warm, have empathy, be connecting, and be caring, I don't know what's going to happen to their practice. This research study says their practices fail because they don't have the people skills. I have a huge long history fear of working with dentists. And I interviewed a whole bunch of them until I found this man who was funny, who told jokes, who was compassionate, who said, Deb, we'll make this work. It's okay. You can make this happen. And I've been with him for over 20 years because of his emotional intelligence skills. So think about the professions and how we go to school to study the information, be it, again, bachelor's, master's, PhD, but we don't study the interpersonal skills. Nobody in the classroom says, wait a second, this is great. This is really, really great. But what are you going to do when you go out there and have to actually work with people? So another question I would like you to think about and talk about in the classroom, and the facilitator will help you do this. So in your career choice, whether you've already made it or whether you haven't, in that career choice, how important do you think emotional intelligence skills is going to be for you to be successful in that career? That is a very important question, and I would like you to really think about that and talk about that. And I'll be back. Now we're going to go into section 4, which is, of course, my favorite section because it's about teaching skills and helping you practice and learn emotional intelligence skills. The skills we're going to look at are self-awareness, the art of listening, asking good questions, and empathy. Now, those are all words you know, and those are all things I'm sure that you believe that you do. But getting good at these skills and looking at what's in the way of using these skills matters. So these are foundational emotional intelligence skills, and you're going to practice them and you're going to leave hopefully having increased your emotional intelligence in these areas. The first one we're going to look at is emotional self-awareness. This is probably the most important attribute of emotional intelligence, because if you aren't present in yourself, if you aren't mindful and present in who you are, knowing what you feel and knowing what's going on, it's really hard to use the other skills because you won't be able to do it the way you want to. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just bear with me and play with me here for a minute. I want you to uncross your legs, uncross your arms, close your eyes, and just take a couple deep breaths. Just a couple deep breaths where you breathe in really, really fully, and then you breathe out the same way. So be present in your body, be with your body as you breathe in. And if you're good at this, what I'd like you to do is just breathe in some white light, breathe in some relaxation, and when you breathe out, try to breathe out all that chatter that's going on in your brain about what else you have to do today or where you're going to go tonight, those kinds of pieces. So open up your body, and in breath, relax your body. Just open your body up, breathe in, and breathe out. Do this 3 times. Just simply do it. In and out for 3 times. And when you're done, check in with your body. Just check in with your body and come up with one feeling word, just one feeling word that you have right now, in the moment, what is going on inside you. It could be anxious, it could be sad, it could be happy, but write down the feeling word and keep that word with you. Just keep that word with you for the rest of the time that we do this work. So knowing how you feel is unbelievably important when it comes to having emotional intelligence skills. Because if I know how I feel, if I'm present, if I'm mindful, those are the words that we use nowadays, then I'm very aware of where I am, of who I'm relating to, of how are my feelings getting in the way or not getting in the way of my interactions. What do I bring from a feeling place to work, to school, to meetings? What do I bring? And here's a really good example of that. I did a training last week, and a gentleman put up his hand, and he said, oh, I get this. I so get this. He said, so I'm at home, and the kids are crazy, and they're spilling their cereal, and everything's going nuts. And my wife says, oh, by the way, you have to take the kids to school today because I've got an early meeting. Okay, so I get the kids to school late. The kitchen is a mess. I show up at work. He says, so what am I feeling? And we all say, yeah, you're frustrated and you're angry and you're upset. And then he says beautifully, you know what? And then I go to my first meeting and all I do is explode because I had no idea that I got to work frustrated, angry, and upset because I didn't pay attention. I had no idea what was going on inside of me. So I took that not knowing into a meeting, and I messed with the meeting, and I hurt some of the people in the meeting because of that. That is the best example ever of knowing what you're feeling, being aware, being mindful of where you are and who you are in relation to your feelings. To use it in a positive way. Had he known what was going on, he could have, on the way to work or right before work, he could have chosen to just take 5 minutes aside, work those feelings through a little bit, and gone into the meeting that he had ahead of time pretty free and pretty clean. So that's an example of a really good use of self-awareness of feelings. All right, here's a homework assignment for you. What I'd like you to do is take a notebook or a journal or whatever works best for you and take a day. I used to say take a week, but I don't think it works. Take a day and every hour or two, stop if you can, jot down what you're feeling. So get that self-awareness rolling. So what is going on with me right now? Mad, sad, happy, glad. What am I feeling? And then write about what that feeling is telling you. Write about what that feeling is telling you. So for one day next week, if you could do it for a week, it would change your life. Do it for one day, just one day. Every hour or two, check in inside with the question, okay, so what am I feeling right now? There are many of you who won't be able to do it, which is why I suggest to people that they do it for a week, because it's hard. It's a hard thing to just slow down enough, be present with yourself enough to actually say, oh, wow. This is what I'm feeling, and this is why. So that homework, believe it or not, is life-changing homework, because for you to be present in yourself, in the world around you, is probably one of the most important gifts that you can give to yourself. And it will increase and make you very aware of the level of emotional intelligence that you're working with. So that's one, self-awareness. All right, now we're going to go to awareness of others. And we're going to look at three skills. We're going to look at listening, empathy, and asking good questions. Again, hang in here with me because we believe we know how to do these things. We seriously believe we are good communicators and we know how to do this. And what you're going to hear and find out in these exercises is that, yeah, we know how to do it, but we don't often practice good listening, good asking of powerful questions, and good empathy. Empathy is a tough one because it's really hard to define. So we're going to look at these three things. All right, the art of listening. What everyone needs is a good listening to. I love that quote because, of course, what everyone needs is a good talking to. What we know from research in the social sciences, from all kinds of personal experiences, is that the largest gift that I can give you, bar none in this world, is to listen to you. Because most of the time, people want to talk. Most of the time, we're better at talking than we are at listening. To find someone who actually is present, back to self-awareness, is present enough to listen to you is magical. And it is a gift, and we don't have much of that around us. So what we're going to do here is you're going to learn how to increase that gift, how to increase your ability to listen. All right, this is a cartoon, and it's just a fun cartoon, and it just emphasizes we stand right next to each other, and we don't listen. The slide in front of you is top 7 poor listening habits. There is a professional coach by the name of Doug Silsby, and Doug Silsby says this. He says, you know what? Our intent is to listen. Nobody sits down with another person and says, well, I'm not going to listen to that person. Our intent is to be present and to listen. Now, the odds are we are not present, and the odds are he calls it our monkey brain. What he says is we have so many things going on in our brain that we can't listen. We can't listen through the chatter. So listening, clear listening, has nonverbal pieces, which means what? It means that I make eye contact with you. It means that I pay attention to your face and I pay attention to your words and that I really listen away from all the monkey chatter that's going on. Now, you're going to say, yeah, easy, Deb. That is unbelievably hard to do. Unbelievably hard to do, to sit and listen to another human being. Again, the largest gift that we can give that human being. So this is for fun. On this slide are the 7 poor listening habits. There's probably 45 to 100 poor listening habits, but these are the ones that I came up with that they get in the way of me listening. They just get in the way of me listening all the time because of this chatter that's coming up here. A really easy example of that, the one I am profoundly good at. I'm actually profoundly probably good at all 7, but the one that I am profoundly good at is that I don't listen because I'm waiting to speak. So I'm putting in my head what it is I'm going to say. So I sort of listen, but I'm really just waiting to speak. That's one thing. Another one is that you want to solve the problem. So instead of really intently sitting with this person and listening, you're already trying to make them feel better. All right. Exercise. Look at these 7 poor listening habits and come up with your top 2, because I would think all of you have all 7 of these at one point or another. It's what we do. We don't slow down, we aren't present, and we don't pay attention to another person. There's an example that I have with my son that is a really, really good example. Now, mind you, I've been a trainer and a teacher and a therapist for my entire life. And I walked into my house, I was a single mom, and I walked into my house, and as usual, I said, "Hi, Matt, how are you?" And I don't know what I heard him say or if he said anything. And I went to the kitchen to start dinner. Now, I was maxed. What was in my head was the clients I had seen that day, the organizations I was working with, what was I going to do for dinner? Was I going to be able to sleep tonight? And my son comes into the kitchen, mind you, I trained him, right? And he puts his hands on my face. And he said, Mom, I need you to listen. Now, I bet you all of you have experienced that. I just would believe that all of you have experienced that. That was, for me, a changer. That was a game changer in my relationship with him as an adolescent. Because particularly as an adolescent, I sort of, I don't know how much I listened, actually, because there's all the drama and all the stuff that goes on with adolescence. So I sat down. I sat down at my table, didn't worry about dinner, and just said, talk to me. Talk to me about your day. And I really, really listened. Had he not done that, I never would have found or heard some of the gifts he gave me when he talked with me about his day and how we talked some things through that we might not have had I not truly listened, or had he not called me on it and just said, Mom, stop dinner. I really need you to listen. So that's an example of both how we don't listen and how we do listen. So take a couple of these, 2 or 3 of these poor listening habits. And what I want you to do, this is an exercise, what I want you to do is I want you to turn to a person next to you. And I want you to just talk to that person about all the stuff that goes on in your brain that gets in the way of you truly listening. And hear me, again, truly listening to another human being is one of the largest gifts that you can give that other person. Because it's not a pass in the hall, hi, how are you? It's not a pass in the hall, hi, how was your weekend? Fine. It is being present for that other person in a way that will make that person feel valued, cared about, and heard. Probably one of the top emotional intelligence skills there is. And we all say we do it and we don't do it. So pick a couple that fits you perfectly, and please have fun with this exercise because we all don't listen. And talk to the person next to you about what your top 2 are. And let that person also talk to you. And then the facilitator in the room is just going to bring it all together and take a look at how good we are at not listening. So no blame, no shame. Just get it. Just get that life moves fast and we don't often slow down enough to listen. We'll be back. Welcome back. What I hope is that you had fun with this, because it really is, it is eye-opening how we don't listen to people, how we really don't listen to people. And again, one of the pieces you're going to leave with is an increased knowing that listening matters, and hopefully an increased ability to actually pay attention to the person who's sitting in front of you. All right, next skill, equally as difficult, is empathy. Top on the list of emotional intelligence skills. So empathy is I listen to you, I acknowledge you, and I understand you. I listen, I acknowledge, and I understand. And then I acknowledge it verbally. So empathy is an amazing skill that helps me feel connected to you, validated by you, understood by you. It is the place right next to listening that supports extraordinarily healthy relationships. And that is my ability to get out of myself enough to pay attention to what is going on with you, to understand it, and to acknowledge it. So this is what I would like you to do. I would like you to take this example, and I want you to listen to the example for a second. All right, so the example is, I am a massive procrastinator. I procrastinate almost everything. Getting through school was not so easy for me because I was really good at last minute saves. So I'm a procrastinator, and I have a major project or a paper, whichever, due tomorrow morning. It's due tomorrow morning. I have not started on this project or this paper. I haven't even begun to look at it. I have not started, and I have not begun to look at it. And I am starting probably right now to get anxious and to worry about, oh my God, am I going to get this done? Am I not going to get this done? So what I want you to do is I want you to come up with 3 statements of empathy to me about my procrastination and about my will I or will I not get this paper or project done. So instead of what you want to say to me is, this is what you want to say to me. So why did you procrastinate? Why didn't you start this months ago? God, that's kind of stupid how you do this in the world. You know, you need to step up and get better at this. I can't help you. I can't help you get a paper done overnight. Are you kidding me? What we tend to do instead of empathy, if we're in that place, is we make judgment or we problem solve. We move right into, okay, well, I'll do this with you and we'll spend 2 hours here and then we'll do 3 hours here. We don't just acknowledge the person's feelings, which is what's going on with me when I've procrastinated. It's the night before and I am anxious. I on some level know I can pull it off, but I am anxious. And this is the style that I put myself in all the time. So I want you to pay attention to what I've said, my feelings of anxiety, and I don't want you to solve the problem. I don't want you to give me advice. I don't want you to make judgment. I don't want you to ask me any questions. I want you to listen, understand, and respond. So what I'd like you to do is write 3 statements of empathy around my procrastination. And the facilitator will have a large group conversation about what empathy really looks like and feels like in relation to that. And then I'll be back. Hopefully, in that round-robin conversation about empathy, you got an understanding about what another human being needs to just be connected to you, to have you listen, to have you understand, and to have you not make judgment. So we started with listening, and we moved to empathy. Now we're going to move to asking powerful questions. So those three are the foundational pieces to what we call in the biz active listening, which is the ability to listen, the ability to relate with empathy, and then to be curious and to ask questions. This one is my favorite because curiosity is, I'm an extraordinarily curious person. I think it's why I've worked with people as long as I have, because I believe that asking questions increases my relationship, increases the depth of my relationship with another human being versus making statements, giving advice, not listening, and not being available. So asking questions is a really, really important tool to use in a relationship, and we don't do that a lot. We don't like somebody didn't say to me, they might have actually, but they didn't say to me, so Deb, talk to me about why procrastination works for you, because it isn't working, and I'm just curious. Again, the word curious, or wow, Deb, how does it feel when you're up all night having to do that paper? That's got to be hard. That kind of language develops and supports relationships. And ultimately, when you listen and you have empathy and you ask questions, the end result of that, the beautiful end result of that is trust. That trust happens in a relationship. And once trust happens in a relationship, that's a solid relationship. And those are all emotional intelligence skills. Those are not cognitive IQ skills. Those are my ability to be with you in the moment, to listen, to have empathy, and to ask questions. So I'm going to give you a really simple exercise that's fun, actually, about asking questions. And it's just to ask questions. So here's the phrase that I'm going to give you. The phrase is, oh, I saw a hummingbird. That's the phrase. So I want you to write that down. Oh, I saw a hummingbird. Now what I want you to do is I want you to ask 10 questions that come from me saying, oh, I saw a hummingbird. 10 questions that come specifically from that sentence. No rights or wrong, no good questions or not good questions. Don't make statements, don't make answers, don't tell me how a hummingbird works. Ask 10 questions. Write them down, and we'll be back. All right, welcome back. So hopefully this was fun. Hopefully it gave you an idea about taking a subject or taking anything and really getting curious about it. Hopefully you got curious about the fact that I saw a hummingbird. And what about a hummingbird makes you curious? Or what about me seeing a hummingbird make you curious? Curious is I call curious the juice of living. Being curious in the world is what keeps us alive. Being curious in the world is what keeps us moving forward in all kinds of different ways. Because curious means I'm a learner. And to be a learner in this world is really, really important. Peter Senge is an extraordinary man who wrote many, many books, but one of them called The Fifth Discipline. And the fifth discipline is about organizations needing to be learning organizations, not knowing organizations. That is what curiosity is about. Curiosity is about being a learner, being willing to not know. To not know about a hummingbird becomes important. All right, so you have 3 skills that you have looked at this point. Listening, asking good questions, and having empathy with another human being. All right, now we're going to put those all together. We're going to put those all together in a conversation that you're going to have with another person in the room. So I want you back in twos. And this is really simply what I want to have happen. I want one person to tell a story, and I want the other person to actively listen. So one person, I don't care if it's a story about your weekend or about papers that are due or about a manager that's bugging you, but I want a story. And the person that is the active listener, it is your job to listen, to ask good questions, and to have empathy. That's it. It is not your job to solve the problem, to make judgment, to relate to it somehow because you have gone through it. So what I want really clearly is for you to ask questions about the story, for you to have empathy about the story, and for you to listen well to that story. So the storyteller, come up with a difficulty that you've had with your family or at work or whatever, so that this person can actually make a connection with you in relation to that. That exercise should be, the longest that should be is 3 minutes, and then I want you to switch, and then I want the listener to be the storyteller, so that you've each had a chance to tell a story, and you've each had a chance to active listen. Pay attention to how you feel. Back again to self-awareness. What feelings get evoked when someone is truly listening to you, asking you good questions, being curious about what's going on with you, and having a sense of empathy, a sense of connection with you. Pay attention to how it feels when that happens. All right, so 3 minutes, and then switch and do 3 minutes. And then your facilitator is just going to talk about this in the room a little bit, and then I'll be back. All right, so hopefully that was a good experience. And I would bet an experience that you do not often have, which is that kind of attention from another human being, that kind of interest from another human being. And my guess is that there was a relationship that started developing because of those skills that you used. So we're done in terms of the exercises today, but I just want to do some summary statements and talk a little bit about emotional intelligence. As you can, I think, see, I am pretty passionate about all of our abilities to become more emotionally intelligent. It is a priority in terms of who we are as human beings, that we learn to care about each other and to value each other, to listen, to have empathy, to ask good questions. All of those do nothing but increase our sense of well-being. And having that sense of well-being is important in terms of who we are in the world. So it connects us, it creates relationships, it makes us more successful in the workplace. And by the way, you can take some of this home and it'll help you with your adolescence, it'll help you with your relationships. These skills matter. And I gave you the research and I gave you the reasons, but mostly I wanted you to feel the difference of what happens when you use these skills. So I hope you take parts of this with you. I hope you get curious about emotional intelligence and you study it and you check out some books and you talk to people about it, because it matters. It's going to matter in your career hugely, and it's going to matter in your relationships. I want to thank you for being here with me. Thank you for going through the exercises with me. And I particularly want to thank Jerry Wagner and the IOC for giving me this opportunity. Take care.